ready to
what's
pull her out of
amazing
the
is
shop
that-
and it's finished, and they go to pull her around the down leg and bust the end off. So
House cat.
Gary and Tom,
Yes, I do remember that. I needed.
you guys been misbehaving or what? I see you got the boss
Taste out of
sitting
your
in the
mouth.
same row. Keeping an eye on you.
They need somebody to keep an eye on them. But they told me when they came in that they had everything under control, so.
That's not easy to do.
This is the. 1 minute, we'll get started.
I can burn anything.
We have a lot of audience tonight.
Oh. They did, didn't they?
they did.
Shame, shame.
That's the,
On the post.
Yeah, actually, if it wasn't for Glenn, I wouldn't have known how much they spent.
Them bullet holes?
That horse?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, and then
it was just
the guy.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Public Health and Safety Committee. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Got it down. Jackie, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yep.
Richardson?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Lemkool?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Henschel?
yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Fleece?
Present.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. No, that's next week. Okay, the next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the September 5th regular session.
So moved for approval.
Support.
Motion by Inman, supported by Richardson. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. This brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. If you wish to make public comment at this time, we will ask you to come to the microphone. There will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting, and there will be opportunity when we're discussing specific issues during the agenda. Is anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Do you want to read the rules, or if nobody holds their hands up, we'll just move on?
Good.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Approval of the agenda. On your desk this evening, there is a resolution accepting a Community Corrections Grant Contract, fiscal year 2003 through 2015. I'd like to add that to new business as item B.
Okay.
I move for approval of the agenda with the addition of the Community Corrections Grant Contract under new business.
Support.
Motion by Richardson, supported by Henschel. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. We have no special order of business, or we have no special order of business this evening, so this brings us to the consent calendar. If you will, please, Jackie.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there any item the public wishes to have removed? Any item the board wishes to have removed? Seeing none, I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman,
for
I'll make
the
a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
motion by Inman, supported by Lemkool. Further, or roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. This brings us to department action items. Health Department. Good evening, Jerry.
Just in time.
Jerry Pugh, Finance Director, Grand Traverse County Health Department. You have a summary of the terms of the draft lease agreement and equipment purchase agreement that we came up with for the new building, for the portion of the building that would be leased to the the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. Basically, this agreement was drafted to acknowledge the partnership between Grand Traverse County and the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. It was designed to cover the debt service of the bonds on the project. And it incorporated a few changes from our current relationship where the dental clinic will actually be sharing in the cost of the utilities of the building, which they are not presently paying at the Garfield location. And they'll also be paying for their own janitorial services. So they will actually be occupying significantly more space. They go from about 2,900 square feet to approximately 4,900 square feet. And also their financial commitment under this agreement will increase by about $40,000 a year.
Herb?
Motion to approve the lease.
Support.
Motion by Lemko, supported by Fleece. Further discussion. Dean? Dean, did you wish to add anything to this?
Only to answer questions.
If I could, the only question that I had, we have in place now a long-term lease agreement with Dental Clinics North, correct?
Well, we currently have an agreement, but this agreement would replace the agreement, and it's a 10-year agreement that we're proposing with a renewal of 10 years.
Okay. Ross?
I mean, I'm sure everything's fine, but there's no detail in here?
There was no summary.
There's no summary on like how much they're paying, or,
The fixed rate per square foot or whatever.
you know, I mean,
All we got is just like,
I'm a little reluctant to vote on something where I don't see any numbers whatsoever. Is there any way we could just, maybe delay this for a week and just, make a summary sheet or something?
One summary sheet, we can just make a copy right now and give it to everybody.
I've got summary sheets with me if you'd like.
Why don't we just distribute them out? That's all we do is look at them.
Make some copies.
Yeah, there's truly no numbers in the recommendation that's in our package.
Nothing.
Do you want the debt service too? This is,
I think those three.
And what you guys can talk about for it.
Well, Dean makes copies. Were there other questions for Jerry, maybe? Go ahead, Ross.
Jerry, you said utilities will be invoiced on a pro-rata share basis. How is that pro-rata share figure? Is it just based on
square footage.
Straight on square, okay.
Yeah.
Is there any thought that they might be using more electricity or a higher proportion of water than some of the other areas of the building?
Yeah. When we were looking at remodeling our existing facility, we had talked about separate meters. And I don't know, and then you get into common areas that are shared by both of us. So, when we sat down and talked with the dental clinic folks, we just thought it was easier to just do it on a square footage basis.
Okay. Is that the way it's done right now?
They do not pay utilities.
Well, they don't pay utilities at all right now?
Right.
Okay.
They're not paying for utilities, and they're not paying for janitorial services.
Okay, so this from that standpoint, this is an improvement for us then?
Right. I estimated, based on energy modeling that the engineers had done, that they'll probably be paying $6,000 to $7,000 a year in utilities. Their share of the janitorial services, assuming that they use Porcelain Patrol, will probably be $12,000 to $15,000 a year.
Herb?
Do we have in there that, that you have the right to be able to hire the cleaning services for that facility? Every time I've gotten into a situation where you have 2 or 3 different cleaning services in a building, it creates a real security situation. And I would hope that the cleaning service would be contracted by the county, and then they would be billed for that.
Well, that's the plan. I mean, honestly, we crafted this so that they would have control, because it has been an issue in the past where, the cleaning that was being done in their portion of their building was not up to, the standards that they required.
But it is now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been fine, but they intend to use our service, but they do have the right to secure their own.
Just to clarify, we had at one time, I know it was talked about whether or not we would be buying the equipment and then leasing it to them at the same time, and I see that alternately, it looks like, just if I'm correct, alternately, it looks like we're going to, they're buying their own equipment, and then if, for example, they, in 10 years, are gone and they want to leave something behind or something, there's a way for us to negotiate, so we still have something in the building. Is that how it's going to be, or are we required to take it?
We would be required to take it if they left. They're investing about $500,000 in equipment in the new facility.
Thank you.
So, and that was one reason why we fixed the rent at, the same price for the initial 5 years, because they basically were looking at paying for that equipment over a 5-year period.
Larry? Do you have a lease, or excuse me, do you have a draft lease agreement already prepared?
Yes.
I wonder, because this would be a preliminary recommendation going to the full board, whether, is it fairly thick, or is it?
No,
pretty-
it's not.
Could you, for like tomorrow, get it to administration and have them sent to the commissioners?
Sure.
So they can review it, and then we'll have it for the board meeting at the end of the month. And the only question I have for you, with that follow-up lease notice for us to review, is this termination clause for 60 days. Trying to get my arms around that one. Because when Dennis Aloya was engaging in this project and formulating the recommendation, you kind of got the feeling from Dennis that this was a firm 20-year commitment, but they preferred to have it in 10-year increments. So the question of the 60-day notice to terminate, are there like certain penalties, or are there certain reasons why they would terminate, or is it just a flat, both parties can terminate within 60 days?
Well, if the state chose to no longer
fund.
If they were not
Medicare.
paying for Medicaid dental,
Okay.
this is not going to be a viable operation.
Okay. So the next question I follow by is, if the square footage that they would be taking, what would be your suggestion as a plan B for a contingent plan if that space is now available? Just try to go out and lease it to the general public? Or?
Well, I think it would depend upon, whether we felt it was feasible to continue to operate, some form of dental clinic on our own.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a tremendous need in the community.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Ross?
And just to clarify, the $15 per square foot is the same rate as what they're paying now?
no, it's actually less than what they're paying now. I think they're at $17.40 per square foot
Okay,
now.
all right. But the $15 per square foot is what is being figured for the entire building to pay off the bonds?
Correct.
It pays off the
Okay.
bonds plus adds about 40.
I think on the average, it works out to about $26,000 per year over the
Yeah.
debt service.
Okay.
And they're taking more space, so their amount that they're paying is more, and then they're also paying the utilities as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
the fact
they're-
that they never paid utilities or janitorial
right.
before is a significant difference to our lease agreement.
Their additional cost will be in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $45,000 under this agreement.
How many dental chairs do they have now?
They'll have 12 in the new facility. They have 9 now.
9 now. Okay, so it's a 33% increase in ability to deal with the
Right.
problem. Okay.
Rob?
Can you briefly help me understand how the Health Department of Northwest Michigan is structured? Is it a government entity or a non-government entity working with government funds?
The latter.
The-
Go ahead.
Well, they're a health department just as we are, so.
So they are a government entity, an authority, what are they?
They're not what would be considered a local unit of government. They're some other type of entity, probably a nonprofit of some sort, but we could get back with you on that. You know, they're not a typical unit of government.
Generally multi-county arrangements, and they have several throughout the state.
Okay.
Depends on how many boards of commissioners are involved, but they all have representatives on the governing board of that public health department. They all have to bring their recommendations. They make up a budget for the health department, and they split it with the various units, and they take those budgets back for approval to the various boards of commissioners, and they all adopt it, and that's kind of how it works.
It just seems like we should have done this before we built the building.
Well, we truly did, because we had an extensive discussion about the 20-year lease on it, the fact that they were going to end up with almost twice as much square footage, so they would be paying more money. And, you know, the only thing we hadn't discussed was actually what the price per square foot was going to be, and actually who was going to own the equipment, because I think that was a question at that time, whether we were buying the equipment and leasing it to them, or whether they were basically a direct lease.
I remember the discussion. It just seems like we kind of built this whole $5 million project with a large portion of it on a gentleman's handshake that they're actually going to rent it. But I guess
Well, if you remember, the people from Dental Clinics North were here and outlined very thoroughly what their long-term plan was for our community to provide, you know, adequate service here, and they simply needed the space.
I just work in a private sector environment, and public's a little different.
It's a little different.
Yeah, one other thing that Dean reminded me that I didn't mention, Dental Clinics North, they have been a great partner, and they do currently provide us $45,600 in Medicaid outreach or outreach funds to help promote services, so it's not like, and again, that's out of funds that are generated by the efficient operation of this clinic, so you know, we have had an excellent relationship with them.
Herb, didn't we also, at one, I think it was in the budget or something, that we were going to pay so much per client that came through the Dental Clinics North, and they have not billed us for that portion of it?
Yeah,
So-
we have not paid that since about 2004, I believe.
So, you know, we're getting a really good deal on this, and, you know, like you say, it's been a great relationship between the two, and so it's the best thing for our community.
Well, the key piece is it's been a good partnership for the county and Dental Clinics North, but more importantly, it's been good for our community.
Very good for our community. Yep.
Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Who made the
I
motion?
think we need a
Move to approve.
We had a motion.
No, we had a
No, we have
We
a
have
motion by Lemko, supported by Flees.
Lemkool and Fleece
Lemko.
made the
Yeah, I
motion.
didn't raise
And
it.
second.
Because it's a lease, do we have to have a roll call?
Yeah, spending money? No, we're not spending money.
No, we're not.
Taking money.
Okay, well,
Still committee
It's just a
action at this point.
recommendation. Anyway, we'll get to vote on it again if you choose.
Yeah.
Okay?
thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you,
This brings us to administration. Commission on Aging Board responsibilities. Chris?
I would like to report that the Commission on Aging Board did select 4 committee members. Jim McGee, the present chair, Ralph Safardini, next year's recommended chair, Stacy Lee Isles, next year's recommended vice chair. Please understand these are recommendations and they have not been approved by the Commission on Aging Board yet, and Rodetta Herond. And I would like to ask the members, Commissioner Richardson and Commissioner Lemkool, if it would be acceptable if we started the ad hoc committee after the first of the year. With the holidays coming up, vacations, the Commission on Aging Board just felt that there was no pressing need to address this right now as long as we were moving forward in this direction after the first of the year. Plus, I'm not going to be here in December. So I would greatly appreciate it if we could, yes, so anything you want passed during the month of December, you're going to want to write that down. We would, the commissioners would like to start after the first of the year.
Okay, the other members have anything to say, Ross?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't have a problem with it. I mean, the only reason we have this ad hoc committee is because it was requested by
Yes.
you and the COA board.
That's correct.
And if it's, you know...
And we appreciate
If
it.
it's, you know, fewer meetings to go to, I'm certainly not going to complain about it, so...
All right. Anything else in regard to that?
So that's fine with us.
Thank you.
Okay, we
Appreciate it.
We have no unfinished business. So under new business, Commissioner Fleece has an update in regard to animal cruelty cases.
Well, I have some real concerns about some of the horse neglect that's been going on in our county. And I think it's this board's responsibility to make sure that we do everything in our power to try and prevent some of this. I've asked Mr. Benda to put up some of the pictures of the horses.
God.
But in the meantime, while he's getting them up,
Does it seem to wanna- Looks like it's on, but it's...
you get them up?
Yep.
Some of them.
I can't see.
Yeah, we'll just leave this one on. This is the horse that was rescued that's been reconditioned, if you will. The horse, just to look at it, is in pretty fine shape. You look at the rear quarters, you know, nice and plump, a lot of meat. You don't see any bones sticking up any place. But the latest, we had the Fife Lake deal in December or January. And then, if you want, Dave, we'll just wait until I get done with the timeline here. This complaint really started, the latest one, a year ago, at least. And some people looked at the horse, determined there really wasn't anything the matter, and it was just kind of forgotten. On July 23rd this year, we received a complaint of a neglected horse, and the sheriff's office was sent down there, and the deputy asked Dr. Boyan, who is a horse veterinarian, to come down and take a look at the horse, but his voicemail indicated he wouldn't be back till July 28th. So he then made contact with another vet office, Dr. Murtaugh, and he explained what he had observed, and Dr. Murtaugh, of course, like anybody else, you can't really diagnose or fix anything over the phone. He said, you know, he'd have to examine the horse. On the 24th, the next day, contact was made with the second vet's office, and the veterinarian said that they would set up an appointment with the owner so the horse could be examined that's in question. There was some talk between the deputies investigating this and animal control. But there's some cloudy areas, real cloudy areas there, in my opinion. On the 25th, which is pretty common with cops, the first officer that was sent down there, he has a training day, which you don't get excused from, you have to go. Well, another officer, a sergeant, was assigned to see if he could help in the situation, and they determined that the sergeant made contact with the owner and said that they would give the owner 2 weeks to contact the veterinarian service, at which point a physical examination, I'm reading right off the official report, would be conducted, which I wonder about that too. But anyway, that's what happened. That's July 25th. On August 19th, thank goodness for complaining witnesses, and particularly a lady that wasn't willing to take no action, so she kept calling. But the deputy, who by this time is out of, this is a different deputy. This is one that's coming into the case. And he knows the witness, or the complaining person, from previous, and she reports that her boyfriend can see this animal, and it looks to him like the horse is in dire straits. So the deputy advises her that he's currently assigned to Garfield Township Patrol and would not get down to Mayfield to look into these allegations. And he directs her to contact Central Dispatch and request that an officer go and inspect the animal's condition. So he informs her that a West Side officer would be investigating the complaint. She contacted him twice more to inquire on the horse's condition, and he told her, you know, that he wasn't the one investigating it. She calls again, or no, this is on the 23rd. She calls again on the 19th, and extremely concerned that the horse is still on the field and the horse still needs help, in her opinion. So on the 19th, the deputy drives down there. He finds the horse where the lady said it would be, and the deputy notices from a distance the horse's hip area could easily be noticed, and the side ribs of the animal were clearly visible. So he gets out of his car, he walked down the path to where the subject horse was, and he gets to about 75 to 100 yards away, and he can see the horse fairly decent then. It's a white and black and gray mare, appeared to be very thin, and the animal's ribs, hips, and neck bones were clearly visible. So he went back to where the owner lives, unable to contact the owner. And you got to remember, back earlier in July, the sergeant had given the homeowner, or the owner of the horse, 2 weeks. Well, this is well beyond the 2 weeks. This is a month later almost. So he contacted Dr. Bullion again, this officer did, and he asked him to meet him down at the residence where the horse was. Upon exiting the property north, Dr. Bullion inspected the animal from a distance of 15 to 20 feet. The doctor reported that the subject horse is estimated to be upwards to around 18 years old and is a female mare of the brand Appaloosa. He indicated that the animal appeared malnourished, emaciated, and needs medical attention. He says there's hay visible, but it appears to be a bit old. He indicates that the animal should be examined for any ailments that it may have. On the horse's health scale, from 1 to 10, Dr. Bullion indicates the horse is a 2 at the most. Again, Dr. Bullion indicated the older mare appears to be malnourished and is emaciated, but possibly can be nursed back to health if the proper care is applied. So they try contacting the owner again on the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, leaving notes, no response from the owner. On the, this is the third officer now that I'm speaking of. On the 21st, he finally gets a hold of Mr. Cooney, explains it to Mr. Cooney what's going on and what he's observed and what the vets said. Mr. Cooney indicates a search warrant to seize the horse is not needed. Mr. Cooney quoted a state statute that allowed the investigating officer to seize the animals if immediate care is needed. So, on the 28th, they contact a horse rescue, and horse rescue picks it up on the 21st, and once the horse is in the horse rescue's custody, they contact a different veterinarian, the horse rescue people do, and it's Dr. Robin Whitney, and she's been a veterinarian for about 30 years in large animals. The mare had a body score of 1 on a scale of 1 to 10 and was aged to be in her mid-20s. Now, this is the doctor after she examines the horse. She says basically the same thing that Bullion said. She's emaciated and malnourished. Dr. Whitney reported reference to mare condition as a result of neglect, and she is very malnourished and dehydrated. Hubbard indicated that there was a deep wound on her face as a result of the halter being too tight and left on for an extended period of time. Upon examination, it was found that a vaginal infection, and the mare was placed on antibiotics for 14 days. The mare was also infested with worms and treated for lice. Finally, they get a hold of the owner on the 28th.
Strangle that guy.
He indicates that the mare's name is Polly, and she's 22 years old. And then the pony that's in the same pen is named Dusty, and his age is 12. But another interesting thing after this is the horse rescue's report to, or Dr. Whitney's thing to the horse rescue. When the officer interviews Dr. Whitney back on September 2nd, she indicates that the condition of the mare is very, very poor, and on a scale of 1 to 10, the body is a 1 or 2. She reports the animal is emaciated, has a checked sick body, using up her muscles for survival. That's what's keeping this horse alive. The body's burning up the muscles. She indicates the hide over the bones is in very poor condition. I asked her if she would attribute this to neglect, and her answer was at least neglect, starvation. But anyway, I thought that's a pretty sad situation that goes on for better than a month. And you know, a horse can't pick up a telephone and call and say, you know, I'm in trouble, come help me. It's completely dependent on humans. But anyway, Dave, if you could just show the next photo. This horse that was up there and that one are rescued horses that have been brought back. Now this is the subject mare, the Appaloosa mare. And that's the first photo, and we'll just go to the next one.
Jeez.
Now look at her buttocks where the other horse that was up there. See the sharp point? I mean, everything's all bone, you know, and the poor horse is still wondering what's going on. Next picture. Her hooves, according to the owner, hadn't seen a farrier in better than a year. And, you know, a horse, it would be like, by not trimming their hooves, it's like a human putting on a shoe that hasn't had his toes trimmed or her toes trimmed in better than a year. very painful. Same thing for the horse. Here again is where the vagina is tilted, and they call it a sucking deal, and that's what caused her a lot of the problem, but that's what caused the infection. And you can see, I mean, there's basically not much left of this horse. It's a walking skeleton. Here's a good close-up. Look at her hip bone sticking out. You can count her ribs. Same thing here. You can physically count the ribs, you know. But the point of showing these pictures, it angers me to no end. And I was raised around animals, so maybe I'm a little more familiar, but if that were a human, you'd take it right to the hospital. There's obviously something really wrong. But we had people looking at that horse that were willing to wait days. You know, they took their time looking for the owner. And I worked in law enforcement a long time. And if I had received a call on that horse, when I first started, horses were allowed in the city. If I'd have went up and saw that horse in a pen in the city, I would have immediately, and back then they didn't have horse clinics or horse rescue, but I would have immediately removed that horse from that owner because obviously that horse is in real distress, and that's just a terrible way to treat an animal. Next one. Again, another hoof thing. It's painful for them to walk around like that. So, look at there. See that one? The foot's completely way back. Here's the little pony that was in there with her. Here, the horse rescue people are taking the mare away and the pony. But it's just, it's not a pleasant sight to look at. But that's the facts right there.
Larry, just two quick questions. Was the owner prosecuted, and two, did the mayor?
Well, the owner, the prosecutor's office has authorized a warrant for animal neglect, so.
Did they get him?
Yes, he is going to prosecute, or they are going to prosecute him, so.
Did the mayor live, or don't you?
Yeah, the mayor will live. The horses that have been on a very poor pasture, which this horse was, and I had it happen to a horse of mine one time, they get what they call sand in the cecum. And what that does is when they eat the food, they can't process it, they can't take the nutrition out because the sand completely fills up the cecum. And back when, 30 years ago, there wasn't anything they could do for a horse with sand in the cecum. The horse died, you know, or you had it put to death, which I had to do, which is not pleasant either. But this horse had that condition plus many, many other things. And today they can treat sand in the cecum. So once this horse gets treated, and it says in the report here that the horse now has free access to fresh hay. Good. Of course, they'll start graining it a little bit at a time, and it'll bring it back to looking like it should look. And a horse, you know, even if this horse is 22 years old, a horse can live into their 30s and be pretty active and really look good. So, is that the last one?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Okay, thank you. But I think this board needs to take some definitive action, one way or the other, and what we have is, if I understand it correctly, animal control will handle the smaller animals, but not abuse or neglect, particularly in larger animals. That's assigned to the sheriff. And what I think we ought to do is instruct Mr. Benda to meet with the health department and with the sheriff and get a plan ironed out so we don't have these situations. And particularly with the sheriff, I think probably the health department could do a fine job. Writing a police report really isn't that hard. The sheriff could train the animal control officers. But you know what? They can't do it with 2 people. 3 is really a minimal deal, you know, because these people need to get out and be looking at some of this stuff and have the time to, and we can't, I talked earlier about the deal with the dog at my home the day before Labor Day weekend. That's no way for the amount of taxes we collect in this county to have a department, and it's not the department's fault, it's this board's fault, in my opinion, because we have cut back, well, now it's time, we need to put the necessary personnel, the necessary training into making sure those poor animals are taken care of, and if they're abused, removing them and prosecuting the owners. And my thought was if we had Mr. Benda meet with the sheriff and the health department officials, perhaps them with their head together can come up with a plausible plan. And I don't blame animal control, you know, there's much you can do with 2 people. And if they're spending 25 or 40% of their time at the kennel, we need to get that, again, in my opinion, we need to get that agreement with Humane Society. That would really free up, but we still need to put at least 1 more person in that department to start with. Because let me tell you, hay last year was $2 to $3 a bale. This year, it's anywhere from $8 to $12, and I'm talking the little square bales. If you want to talk to round bales, it's really expensive. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to be hard pressed to feed their animals. And I certainly don't want to see a lot of this, but the horse owners in the community ought to be, you know, we have all these organizations that Herb likes to work on and tout, and 211 and all that, which sometimes I wonder about. But maybe we ought to take some money from that, put it over on the animal side, so these people can call and say, I can't afford to feed my horse and it's winter, and there isn't anything that the horse can do to get food, you know, if the snow's a couple, 3 feet deep. And at least know that we're not going to prosecute them for neglect, you know. They call while the horse is still in good shape, and we'll see what we can do to help them, get some hay someplace, you know. But I think it's this board's responsibility, I really do. And we can't blame anybody else. We can't blame Tom Buss. We can't blame the sheriff or the deputies. I mean, them guys have got other things to tend to, and we need to give them some help.
Jason, I just, before, Tom, do you want to make any comment on this, or Jerry, or anyone else?
Got one quick comment.
Okay, just, I kind of need to know what animal control has to say about this issue also.
Tom Buss, Animal Control Manager. There is a Michigan Hay Bank that is available, and I do have the number for that agency that will provide assistance in hay to folks that are having difficulty feeding their horses. So I've got some flyers on that I could get to you folks if you need, or anyone else that has concerns regarding that. We could even put it on our website so people could look and see where they could contact for help with hay. Because I know this year, yeah, it's been terrible as far as very
I think
poor
that's a
hay.
good idea on your website. Excellent idea.
Jason?
The question I have, and I guess for our administrator or anybody who might know, I mean, rather than, and I understand where you see a need, but rather than build up a whole new, you know, grow a department back up again, could we contract out to some of the local advocacy groups for some of those things that we're not, you know, I mean, that's not being taken care of, and maybe that gives them it leverages their ability to handle some of those, you know, some of the emergency situations, make sure that people are able to feed their horses and whatnot. Like I say, rather than have, you know, hire 2 or 3 more people, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, one of the things is the chain of evidence that has to occur if you're going to actually prosecute somebody for abuse or neglect of an animal. I mean, That's why the Animal Control Department does not deal with these issues. They turn, as soon as they get the complaint, if it's a complaint about abuse or neglect of a large animal, they turn it over to the sheriff's office so that they can do a proper investigation on the case.
Could we train and deputize, so to speak? I mean, so that
They've
they...
been
That would be up-
deputized.
They're deputized, but the reason they're deputized is because they enforce county ordinance and state law, so they need to be deputized to do that, along with potentially seizing animals, dogs, or other animals on cases where there might be a drug house. They would go in support of law enforcement on something like that, and possibly seize animals, so they need to be deputized for that, too. We had a training, we hosted a training in, I believe it was late June. We got the Humane Society of the United States to come to Traverse City, free of charge, and held a training for law enforcement. It was a day-long training. Law enforcement and animal control officers. And it was well attended, not only from, this area here, but the surrounding region too, because we thought, as long as we're going to have this, we might as well open up to the region. So we had folks from sheriff's departments, animal controls, Kalkaska, Antrim County, Benzie, several counties present. And in part of that training was, the importance of animal neglect and abuse, to get a veterinarian engaged right away, because they said it's so critical as far as the case goes for prosecution to have a veterinarian make that determination or the assessment of health of the animals. So, that's something I learned myself from going to that training, the importance of doing that. But something else we wanted to do, and we said after we've had this training, I wanted to open it up also to local horse rescue groups and animal groups, rescue groups, to have the very same group that taught this program for law enforcement. They can also teach it for horse rescue groups and animal rescue groups. So my plan is to get them back to Traverse City and open it up to all of our local horse rescue groups, and kind of get together so we can kind of all get on the same page and maybe understand, what everybody's responsibilities are, and maybe work a little bit better together than what we have in the past. So that's my plan to do, probably early in the year, to get them back to do that. And they do have a training for those sort of groups. So that's in the works too. And I think, training and education is going to be really, really important for everybody to be able to work together and hopefully prevent issues like Larry was talking about.
Tom, that training you're talking about occurred on Wednesday, June 27th.
Mm-hmm.
But one day's training, in my opinion, really doesn't cover the gamut. And I would like to see, there's got to be other avenues of training for the animal control officers. And as far as...
There is right now, Larry. Today, or this week, Ed Hickey is at the MACO conference, the Michigan Association of Animal Control Officers, in Lansing. It's their fall conference. And again, there's a one-day training on large animal neglect and abuse. And when I got the notification for that, I sent notification out to the sheriff's departments and the same group, actually, that was at the earlier training, encouraging them to go, because, to me, you're right. One day doesn't do it. It needs to be kind of ongoing as far as I'm concerned.
Right, exactly.
Chris?
I got to tell you, this is, suffering like this didn't happen overnight. And quite honestly, Larry, I read in this article that the person that was arrested was a Parks and Rec employee of the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So, to say that there was no money to feed this animal, I find that a bit of a stretch. Be that as it may, we have to figure out what we can do to prevent this in the future. And what really occurs Well, what concerns me is the winter. Now, I've owned a horse. Mine was fat. There's got to be some way that we can proactively check on these animals. Vets know where they are. They might not have seen them in a year or two, but they know where they are. There's got to be some way that we can proactively find these animals and have an animal control officer drive on by.
Well, I think, Tom, I think that what you're suggesting is excellent, and I think Tom...
Especially this winter.
Right.
Those animals are not going to be able to feed themselves.
Right.
And this is a person who's got an income. If there are people out there that, and we don't have to go out and attack people, but if an animal control officer sees a horse that, or a large animal, it doesn't necessarily need to be a horse, that needs hay, looks like the owner doesn't have a whole lot there, whatever, and offer assistance to say, here's the 800 number to call. We've got to do something.
Well, I think Tom's got the right idea, is to get the rescue groups involved, get them trained, and, like in this particular case here, you got a gal whose boyfriend's working on an oil rig, looking down, seeing the horse. And, the horse was visible from M37 too, but, people are busy, they don't pay too much attention, but when a neighbor complains... we need to be listening.
But a control officer that is trained to look...
Right. Yep.
is going to look.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think you got to remember there's a distinction here. Animal control officers, as our department was designed, were never designed or anything to handle large animals. And they're not designed for dealing with abuse and neglect. That is a function of the sheriff's department. There's two separate issues. Am I correct, Tom? Animal control, as we all know it, as it historically has been, has never, up until about 9 months ago, ever had discussion about large animals, to the best of my knowledge. It's never been an issue. Animal control has never had any jurisdiction over large animals. But now, all of a sudden, we're going to talk about large animals and try to file that onto the animal control. And I truly don't believe it's their responsibility. Now, if in fact there is a neglect issue or an abuse issue, then there are state laws that allow it to be prosecuted through the prosecutor's office, but it has to be done by the sheriff's department.
Well, then let's fund an officer.
No.
Well, I don't
people
see
are
it.
deputized.
Yeah, they are, but they have never, by the whole function of the department, they have never been responsible for large animals. But one of the things that we as county board commissioners, it's real easy to sit here and say, we should fix this. We have no statutory responsibility to fix this.
You have a moral
I may have a moral responsibility, but I don't have a statutory responsibility to provide animal control. I could eliminate animal control all the way across the board, and I still meet the requirements as set forth by the state of Michigan and the Constitution for functions that have to be provided by the county to the public. We don't have to do animal control. But more importantly is the fact that we have never, ever dealt with large animals until the last 9 months. And all of a sudden, it's become something that's been in the news, so we all pick up on, try to get on the bandwagon a little bit that this is wrong. This is not and it is wrong, without question. But the fact is, this is not the first time in the history of this community that large animals have been abused and neglected. It's not the first time, and you know what, folks? It won't be the last time. When the economy gets like this, people cannot afford to feed animals. I can remember back in the late 60s and the early 70s, a horse down the road a half a mile from my house that was neglected, without question. And neighbors brought hay and brought feed for that animal until they got through it, and it worked around. But the fact is, this isn't the first time this has happened, and unfortunately, it won't be the last. But we cannot pile this on animal control to deal with it. We can prosecute these people for abuse and neglect, no question about that. But I am not sure it's our responsibility to correct and take those animals into custody, if you will, or take them in and take care of them. If the horse rescue people and those people, maybe you're right. Maybe the thing we should do is figure out some way to contract with them to provide service to us or something. But adding personnel to animal control is not going to fix this problem. Larry?
You know, Sonny, I really disagree with you on that point. And let me tell you something. If you personally saw a horse that's in the distressed horse, or a deputy did, or animal control officer, and they did nothing, I can guarantee you it's going to cost this county a lot of money if somebody ends up suing. Because we do have a responsibility. There's no question about it. You know, it's like the dead animals on our highway. The state has that responsibility, but if they choose to ignore it, and I think that is absolutely deplorable.
Larry?
Well, I guess where I would suggest, and just throw it on the floor, is that, you know, have the county administrator, yourself, and the sheriff and Bob Cooney get together and talk about, you know, kind of a guiding plan about, you know, how we might want to approach this situation in the future, and if there can be education, if there can be, you know, to the farmers that are out there that we know that own horses, if we can get direct information to them, and if we can have the ability to have a site agency stop out every once in a while and take a look at it, and have the ability to get food and rescue to an animal, and you know, and have an understanding that all three agencies are going to work together, and if there's an abuse case, and we swiftly move down on with regard to the sheriff's department and take action. So that's what I'm going to suggest, is that, you know, they come up with some organized plan of how to deal with it, and how coordinated, if you can coordinate efforts between your department, sheriff's department, and Cooney, and this rescue, these other people in the community that do these things, if we can meet with them and come up with a coordinated plan. That's what I would suggest.
Rob?
Mr. Benda, you've worked with a lot of other counties. Have you had any experience with how other counties might handle large animal abuse and neglect?
Sheriff's office usually handles it.
Okay.
And that's, and it's pretty much the same as here. Animal control assists with relocating the animals sometimes. You know, they play a role, but when it's a complaint regarding an abuse or neglect situation, that's when the law enforcement gets involved and starts a case file to begin the process.
In your opinion, why did the process seem to take so long in this case? Is it just policy that we need to tighten up on that end?
You know, I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of the people that are out on the road every day and doing this job. You know, in reading the report that Larry was reading from, they clearly knew what was going on the 23rd of July, and apparently there was some discussion maybe a year earlier about this same farm, same horse. You know, where the follow-up is and all that, I think a discussion should take place with the sheriff to talk about that. If there's a complaint, is there a process for following up to see if, you know, you've been given 2 weeks to get a hold of a veterinarian? You know, what's the reporting mechanism? If we don't hear back from you, we're going to be out to see you again. You know, I think the process is what needs to be looked at.
And that's what I'm suggesting, is that you know, we get this suggested group together and create a process and get the outside agencies that might have interest in helping us.
Yeah.
And we're all coordinating this thing together.
You know, the one thing we have to remember is there's hundreds and hundreds of horses in this community, and we've got a half a dozen that have been neglected recently that we're circling this whole discussion about. You know, it's kind of like the discussion we had a couple of years ago about, you know, how many 85,000 people live in this community. What portion of them involve our courts and our jails? you know, but
2%,
it's a very small percentage, but yet it's still a significant issue that we have to be concerned about. Chris?
Sonny, this is some real serious suffering. My question to Tom, do you know if any of the sheriff's deputies are offered this training and take it?
Yes.
You might not be aware, but I'm curious.
Well, the training we had in June on the 27th, we did have sheriff deputy present at the training, and Mr. Cooney was at the training from the prosecutor's office, too.
But just one deputy?
Yes.
Okay.
Would it make any difference if we went back to the way it used to be and the sheriff's department ran the animal control? They would certainly have the opportunity to work closer together without, it's not that you guys aren't doing the job you're supposed to be doing, you are, but could we make it work better if, you know, you had a dog catcher or two and some deputies that, like one on each shift or whatever that would be available? You might be able to do it without hiring anybody.
You know, maybe we could contract, as someone said, with the Humane Society for smaller animals, and then put the funding that we use now for small animals to the sheriff's department for large animals. But I'd like to have that discussion during budget.
There's no question, there are animals, you know, I hate to say animal rights groups in our community, but, you know, between Humane Society, AC Paws, you know, and there's 4 or 5 other ones that just don't rattle off my head right now, but organizations in this community that are there to help protect animals that are abused or neglected or abandoned, you know, and those are good organizations without question. And, you know, we have a lot of discussion regularly about some of the things that we try to do as a governmental entity, that there are organizations out there that do all the time. You know, we get, you know, we're trying to decide which functions are we responsible for, which functions should we be doing, and which functions should we be allowing those other organizations and encouraging them to do.
My thinking, though, Sonny, is maybe we should have the discussion during budget time, because it might be an opportunity to give some of those organizations some badly needed funding in economic hard times, and at the same time make our dollars...
We have to be careful, because we would have to check whether or not we can legally contract with those entities.
Well, I understand, but I'd like to have the discussion.
And if you have rescue agencies willing to come up and feed animals, and you got a coordinated effort, then I don't think we need to dedicate that money, county general fund.
But what I'm saying is we might be able to direct more of those funds towards the sheriff's department that would then enforce this.
I don't really think it's a function of whether the sheriff's department handles animal control or whether the health department handles animal control. Because animal control, as we know it, is not designed to handle large animals.
You know, I'm sitting here listening to all this discussion, and, you know, you made the comment that I'm very involved with human services agencies. The Children's Advocacy Center has seen over 200 children that have been abused. Some of them 3 to 5 years of age. We don't put any money there, or very, very little. To me, that's more of atrocity than 2 horses being abused. And if I was going to ask, if somebody wanted to know where I would put my money, it's sure going to be on the Children's Advocacy Center, because I think a human child being abused is a lot more atrocious than a couple of horses are. And I don't disagree, the horses should never be abused, and we need to do something with it. But if I'm start looking at a budget, I sure am going to go look at how we take care of the human being before I take care of my horses.
Let's have the talk.
So, you know, I guess, I don't know, can I throw a motion on the floor? I would like to make a motion that yourself, Dave Benda, the sheriff, and Bob Cooney, and the advocacy groups in our community come together for a meeting and discuss how we might want to work together and coordinate together, so we're better prepared and something like this doesn't happen again.
Support.
I would assume that you want this to take place prior to us seeing a budget for animal control?
Whatever.
I don't see that happening.
Well, we're not at this point talking about throwing dollars in it more than a coordinated effort. And if they need more dollars, then they need to report back to that. But, I mean, it's whenever it's possible.
Do we need a motion to be able to do this? I mean,
I
I think Dave's already, he and Tom have already been listening to what our requests
But
and our
they got to
concerns
make sure
are.
that we have a consensus direction. We want to make sure that that's the purpose of the motion. So, if you agree or disagree with that.
We have a motion by Inman, supported by Henschel, to direct staff to meet with animal advocacy groups and try to come up with a coordinated plan to move forward. Is there any further discussion? David?
I don't want to belabor the points, but, it's not like we're going to be out investigating and finding new instances of abuse that we couldn't find if we didn't do something different. I mean, the majority of these are going to be, maybe we can increase our presence on the animal control website and other places, in the sheriff's department website, and out in the community, maybe ads in, various publications to get people to report abuse. That will help. But it's the follow-up, once the abuse is reported, that process is what's really in question here. And that is, what we need to talk to the sheriff about, how we can improve that, and maybe come back with some recommendations on how that can work. If advocacy groups can be a part of that, that'd be great, but I think that's where we're going with this. And I'm looking at not like we're going to have people out spying on animals and, taking censuses of animals. I think that you're not going to find it that way. You're going to find them by the same old way you've gotten them before, and that's people see something and go, that's not right. And they need they need to know where to call, who to call, and where to complain, so they can get some action taken. And then when the complaint is made, they got to be assured that there's going to be some follow-up, and it's going to be appropriate follow-up all the way through.
Right. And that'd be part of this process.
Yes.
Okay.
Rob?
Commissioner Wheelock, I really understand your points, and I also question, the state statute put any responsibility on the county. But, I look at we license dogs, and we require people to get shots for their dogs. Might there be any state statute that allows counties to do something similar for large animals? I don't know. That'd be a question for Mr. Cooney. But I just want to throw it out there that
We can't even license Dick's cat.
Yeah, maybe there's a cost-neutral solution.
And yeah, that's what I'm going for, and a better coordinated effort. And, Cooney's going to be part of the committee too, so.
But, he brings up a good point. And that's another thing that really irritates me. Here we have all these dog licenses. Everybody's got a dog, supposed to buy a dog license. And let me tell you, I have called animal control over the last 35 years 4 times, and I've never gotten anybody to come out. Never. And I know a lot of other people that have bent my ear, the same situation, because they don't have the personnel to do what you suggested that they do, take care of the dogs and cats and what have you. And thinking about it, and Sonny, you've been here, you grew up here. Do you remember years and years ago, out in Hoosier Valley, the person that discovered all them dogs had been shot? And they discovered it was the animal control person had been instructed to take the animals out there and exterminate them. He was merely doing his job, and he became so distraught, he committed suicide over that. You remember that? So do I. I think what Dave's saying has probably got a lot of merit, but I think we need just to do a little more, that's all.
Well, it sounds like, to me, in the end, we're going to have to hire at least one more person.
Yeah.
Like it or not.
Might have to.
Okay. Herb?
I don't think so. I think if Dave can do a contract with the Humane Society, that's going to put more people out on the road without adding, we may put some more resources, but we won't have to hire people to do it. Taking the animal control officers out of having to clean the booths, to me, that is the biggest challenge. That we're paying high dollars
Yes, we are.
for somebody to be able to go in there and clean those booths. And we have a contract for the weekend, we sure in the heck can get a contract for the rest of the weeks, the rest of the days, and get the control officers out there on the field where they're supposed to be, instead of doing the housekeeping work.
Okay, we've had significant discussion. Is there anything specific that someone wants to add or anything new? Otherwise, we're going to vote on the motion. Again, the motion is to direct staff to meet with animal advocacy groups and try to develop a plan moving forward for the protection of animals. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Aye, because I don't think we need a motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Nope.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yep.
Fleece?
Yes.
Yep.
Thomas? Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the community corrections contract that was on your, grant contract that was on your desk this evening. As you see, the recommendation is to approve the acceptance of a grant in the amount of $705,750, and authorize the chairman to sign said agreement immediately. Is there
Move to approve as
anything
board
more?
action.
I motion by Henschel, supported by Richardson. Did you wish to add anything?
No, not unless you have any questions for
Does
me.
anyone have any questions?
Nope. Nice for a 3-year contract.
It is, it's a 3-year contract. The only thing I guess I would like to add, it is a little bit lower than our previous 3-year contract, only because the state, we've discussed this before at other meetings, the state took away the PRS funding from coming into the county themselves, and they fund...
They contract it out.
Yeah, they contract that out themselves. So we still provide the exact same service, it just doesn't come through the county.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Our dear student sits in the back smiling because she's going to be out of here in less than 2 hours. Her instructor said she had to stay here 2 hours if we lasted that long. And I already signed just in case we did, so we should be good. Seeing no public comment, Commissioner Committee reports?
Just
Larry?
one county planning has in your mailbox, the banquet, the annual banquet. It's going to be held at the Williamsburg Banquet Center, November 1st. So last year was a great event, and I encourage you to go.
We're
So-
taking a collection to send Commissioner Gilman.
Touche. Ouch.
It's getting ugly. Let's get through this agenda so we can move on.
Get your $25 checks and registration form filled out.
All right, any other comments from commissioners?
The poverty simulation is Friday from 9 till 12, if anybody's interested. This is a great opportunity to see what it takes for somebody that's in poverty and what they have to deal with.
Rob?
As your representative to community mental health, just wanted to note, I requested from our courts, the mental health courts, annual report and evaluation summary. In our area, we have mental health courts where if somebody has a mental illness that leads them into breaking the law, let's treat the problem and not just punish them for having a problem, such as substance abuse. And so our courts have a great diversion program to keep people out of jails. It keeps them in their life, but also at the same time gives them the option to go through rehabilitation and treat the actual issues they have instead of just sitting in a jail cell. It's been a huge success. I have the report available if any commissioner would like to see. The district court sent over to me upon my request. Also, if you look at our jail numbers, which I just hit my email box this week, our jail numbers are down. It's working. We're rehabilitating people, in my view, more than ever before. And, you know, whereas without this system, I think we would have to be building a jail right now, and I've heard numbers from $20 to $40 million for a jail, depending on what you build. Imagine just the interest on that, and we're saving that because we're doing the right thing in taking care of people that have mental health issues.
And all of our alternative courts, not just mental health.
Yes.
You know, we have
Veterans Court.
Veterans Court, we have drug court, we have the juvenile drug court, we have the mental health court, and...
Sobriety.
Yes,
We're about to start a eviction court, too.
Yep.
You know,
And
so
these
our
courts are-
alternative courts have made a significant difference in our jail population.
Yes.
And I think they've had a positive impact on our community.
Yeah, and these courts are not without their critics, but, that's why I asked for the numbers. Show me the numbers, and you'll see recidivism rates are much lower with people that go through this. They aren't repeat offending like people that just sit in a jail cell. So that's encouraging. I think we're doing something right in this county, and we should recognize it.
Other commissioners' comments? Dick?
The BPW yesterday established the date for the first public hearing on the special assessment district, and already the time has been changed. It's October 16th at 6 o'clock at Garfield Town Hall.
16th, 6 o'clock.
And I'm not going any farther into the special assessment district unless somebody,
Thank you.
unless somebody wants to.
Is there any further discussion? Any other announcements or notices? A reminder again, I will be out of town the week of Ways and Means and Land Bank, so third week.
Are you going to Florida with Larry?
No, I'm going to Tennessee. It's halfway to
I'll be
Florida.
back for the meeting.
I'm going to the soccer game in Tennessee, so. We have no need for closed session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Fleece, second by Richardson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.